everybody. Welcome to the September 2025 Town Hall for Concrete CMS. I'm Franz. It's going to be a pretty light month here. We've got a core release. We've got some talk about AI, a little PRB review, and a site in the wild. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Hey everybody. This month we released 944. This release fixes some important bugs that were in 943. So definitely highly recommended if you're updated to the latest and greatest to update to this new one. There are a lot of little improvements in the release as well, and a bunch of bug fixes too. We have started on our initiative of fixing some long time bugs in the core, and I think as we continue with these releases, we're going to be working through that bug backlog pretty quickly. So definitely check out 944. We've added some ability to configure logout behavior. We've added the ability to log stack traces of uncaught exceptions to the logs, fixing a number of bugs, and a lot of other new features as well. So definitely check that out and let me know what you think. Thank you to everyone who works on the core in GitHub, whether it is through the submission of code or through just opening issues that we work from. We could not do this without a vibrant open source community. Thank you to everyone who submitted documentation this month. That includes Tim at Irdi. Thank you. And GitHub activity this month. Thank you so much to Hishi, Jiro NZ, Morier, Grashal, M4U, Dan Klassen, M. Martin PDX, Bloody Iron, Ashish A. Now, M. Lokadi, and Arnie PL. Thank you to everyone, and we will see you next month.
Hello, I'm John the Fish, and welcome to this month's fairly brief marketplace news. From DE Webmakers, we have Large Language Models Generator. This installs a task, a bit like the sitemap task, except rather than generating an XML formatted sitemap, it generates a markdown formatted list suitable for ingesting by an AI. Large Language Models Generator is $15 in the marketplace. That's all for this month, so until next month, be safe.
Hello everyone, welcome to Sites in the Wild, where we spotlight interesting ways Concrete CMS is powering real-world tools and applications and experiences. And today we're going to take a look at Badger Meter. We're going to take a look at one of the tools that they built for their internal workforce. This tool is built by our partner Trevera Interactive. The tool helps field workers, aka meter readers, accurately read, record water meter data, which is then billed to the customer. Badger Meter, they're experts in smart water metering for municipalities. They also sell meter readers to homes and clients, and when new homes are built. So the tool helps the workers understand how to read the meter. There's a little helper here with some instructions if you need some explanations. What the workers do is first they'll walk up to a client's house, they'll take a look at the meter, and they are going to choose the proper meter for that client, and the size and the units of measure. And then they're going to start typing in whatever is on the face of the meter. And then you'll see all of this information is automatically calculated, and the readings that get sent to billing are right here. And then as you go on, you can change the meter reader again. Once you get to the next house, choose the proper reader, and then you'll just type in the numbers, and this all calculates right here on the website right in front of you and gets sent to billing. So before, they were doing this all by paper, pen, and calculators. So there were lots of billing errors and things like that. So this is built on Concrete CMS, developed by one of our great partners, Trevera Interactive. And this tool is really cool. It shows the power of collaboration of Badger Meters Innovation and Concrete's infrastructure. So today they're giving the field workers, our favorite meter readers, tools to keep water flowing accurately and sustainability. Thanks, everyone.
This is actually a question that came in after our newsletter last month. I'd love to hear some discussion by you and members of your team about the LLMs you have found that have the best comprehension of Concrete CMS. Experimenting mostly with OpenAI for making modifications to the behavior outputs of Concrete. As a longtime Concrete user, so something I used to be able to tackle without an AI in 5.6, but 9.4.2 the code feels much denser and is proven challenging. OpenAI, the results have been mixed. It'll rapidly suggest a solution that can be made functional with only a few modifications. In other cases, you'll embark on an hours-long and ultimately futile adventure. Yeah. Bottom line, I want to hear a conversation about which tools you and your team may consider reasonable utility for coding current versions of Concrete. Not talking about developing plugins. Has more to do with perhaps wanting to enhance the output with specific blocks or past pages. So maybe making custom templates. We're working on a theme.
Yeah.
We're not building like a e-commerce app, I guess. In broad strokes, how do we use AI in our workflow today?
I know that I have used, I assume by OpenAI, I know that this is probably a silly assumption because it can mean so many things, but I'm assuming by saying OpenAI that it's sort of analogous to ChatGPT, although I know that they're two different things. But like I have used ChatGPT to create Concrete to do a couple different things. So I've used it to create unit tests, which I would only really recommend if you understand the code you're testing and you're using it as like an extra set of hands. It's definitely, you never want to generate tests that just mindlessly pass, because who knows if you don't understand them, because then it's just another thing that could go wrong that may not be providing you any utility. I have used it to enhance the core while in order to like maintain backward compatibility while implementing security fixes. So again, I would only recommend doing this if you're kind of really pretty comfortable with the code that you're modifying, the inputs and outputs. And then I have also used it to create custom block types. And this sounds closest to sort of what the message is talking about. So ChatGPT at least does understand Concrete's like concepts. So I can say, this is a real example that I encountered while working on something a number of months back. I needed to create a block type that like had an image, and then if you hovered over it, it showed a video or something like that. And I basically described, I asked ChatGPT to generate the various templates for a block type in Concrete CMS that could do this. And it gave me, it gave me the pieces that I needed in different things I could copy and paste out. So this is definitely a more, a lower tech version than the kind of agentic programming that people are touting these days. It's definitely sort of piecemeal, where you get the parts delivered via OpenAI and you copy them out yourself into files locally and make those changes yourself. And what it really amounted to a lot of was being a sort of on-demand, very smart replacement for what I already use a lot in my current workflow, which is like literally copying and pasting stuff that already exists. So if I were to do this by hand, what I would probably do is start with a block that I knew had some of the capabilities I was working with, or that I was looking for, and I would copy and paste that block, rename the different things I know I need to rename, the database table, the controller, the directory, that kind of stuff. This does get you so that you don't have to do that. And if it is working, correctly, it will create the XML file that works with your database table, and it will save you work. And then the other thing that was helpful was it did give me an output that worked pretty well. Was the code very pretty? It was definitely not. Like, it was kind of, the style stuff was like inline in the block. I didn't really care for this use case, to be perfectly honest, although I know that if I were putting it in the core, it'd be a much higher bar, and I wouldn't want to approach it that way. I would want a higher standard of quality than what I was looking for with this. When you're working with the core and you're trying to get code that everyone can reuse, you don't want to just sort of spatter styles here and there. But if you're doing something for one specific project, your barrier of entry and your level of code reuse concerns, those go down. So so this really did save me time. But one thing that I would caution against as I sort of hand this off to Corbin is it does understand the concrete like idioms. So like it will build the controller file, it will name it properly, it will build all the templates it needs, and it definitely kind of understands a lot of the pieces that go into making something like a concrete block. So it's not totally in the dark as to how to build concrete specific functionality. Like it's actually been very, very helpful with a lot of that stuff. Like I've asked it to do single pages and controllers and stuff. Or if you ask it, if you have a bunch of forms you need to build, you can say, build me Bootstrap 5 compatible form layouts for the following fields. This one's a select menu, this one's an input field. Like, and that, as someone who constantly has to copy and paste from the Bootstrap documentation to do that kind of stuff, like it really does save time. But it also made, within the actual controller methods, like it went a little nuts. Like it didn't make stuff that was totally useless, but it was like doing a lot of things it didn't need to do and sort of hallucinating some methods that really did not need to be there and did not fulfill any function. So if you don't have a solid understanding of the fundamentals of concrete, you're going to be left with blocks that probably like 80% work and contain a lot of code that isn't going to break, but isn't going to help you. And, if you do that 50 times on a website, you're going to be left with something that's really pretty difficult to maintain. So you have to be pretty deliberate. It is definitely a power tool, but if you understand it and you're working with a system that you already understand, and it sounds like this poster is, like, I think that ChatGPT is a pretty normal and fine way to speed up your workflow, and it does understand concrete.
Nice. How do you use AI, Corbin?
I agree with everything that Andy said. I more typically use it integrated in my editor, and I think that can kind of speed things up just in general because, like Andy said, context is king, and you have to give it a good instruction. And if part of the instruction is the code that you already have and the block that you're trying to make a template from, that can generate code a lot better and a lot more safely than if you're just kind of letting it go off to the races and see what you get. So I would generally recommend trying to use something like Copilot or whatever is available for the editor that you use. I think in general, as many guardrails as you can put up to kind of prevent this cycle of like, okay, well, I'm copy and pasting these changes that are being made, and then I'm going and looking at it, and that, finding issues with it, and then telling it to do something, and then it makes more issues. Like that cycle can take up a lot of time. And so if you're able to do things like, add testing to get the actual specific output that you want for a method that you kind of lay out, some of these tools can hook into that and run the tests for you as it's generating the code and ensure that you're getting the output that you're looking for. So those things would be what I would recommend. The last thing is, if you're trying to do block templates, a good way to go would be to start with the code that you're expecting to make a template from. So, copy that into the file you want it. And then from there, give it kind of discrete instructions on the things that you want to do, like make this text area bigger, or make this text area rich text, or whatever it is. Having that structure first there and kind of scoping it down to what you're actually wanting to do can help avoid the hallucinations that Andy's talking about, where you end up with just blocks of code that do nothing or do something arguably dangerous. Or a lot of the time I'll try to get something from it, and then it gives me some kind of boilerplate that effectively does exactly what I asked, but not what I'm looking for. So it's helpful to have some guardrails or a testing plan, use the context, and then integrate it with your editor so you can kind of get that smooth flow.
Yeah, I mean, that resonates with me. I'm not really writing any code, but I'm certainly using lots of AI, and it doesn't do anything 100%. It's we were talking with someone recently that described it as like having a drunk intern. Like there's a lot of excitement. There's boundless energy. They're just happy to be here, and they do know something about what you're working on. But hey, you just finished this. I got to leave early. Whatever you feel is good, just send it to the press. Absolutely not. Like it always comes up with something goofy. And I think there may be development situations where you're like, that's actually okay, right? Like I was playing around one night. We got another project we're working on where the logo is a spirograph, and it was like, oh, it'd be cool if the background we were drawing spirographs, like in 3D rotating. And I was able to just poke around with ChatGPT and get some JavaScript that does that. And we could put that in the background of a page because it just doesn't really matter, right? Like we can look at that and be like, are there any gaping security issues here? Doesn't seem like it's a particularly big attack vulnerability. It's a background animation. So like, does it look good? We're done. But I think as soon as you get beyond like that very low bar of credibility, it's a little helper buddy, but it can't. I guess case in point, was it like 2 years ago that I like rewrote all of our documentation over Christmas with shocker everybody. AI was involved with that. I think that's probably a pretty good example of like how it can help and also what the downside is. Like we had been working on documentation for 15 years or something, like just progressively adding subsections about new parts of concrete, and like there was a lot, like there was an awful lot of content, and it had a lot of personality to it. You could really kind of see the whole history of concrete. Some things had been deprecated, some are still in there, and it was really difficult for people to kind of somebody new to wade through and understand the project. It's like, this is like I'm reading your whole autobiography, guys. Like I just need a simple guide. And I was able to point ChatGPT in this case to say, look, read all these talks and then let's start writing something new. But it's like it's a negotiation. Like, let's start with a table of contents that we can agree on. How we're going to break this up? Okay, let's do one little section at a time. And the more room you give it, the more likely it's going to start making stuff up. And in the end, I mean, what I got was very consistent, very clean, and absolutely had stuff that had just made up in it. And we ended up sending Mike through page by page. Like, yeah, that would be cool if that existed, but it doesn't. Or that's not what that's labeled. So you just really have to double check everything it does. I think you've kind of described in the past to me, Corbin, like if you're thinking of it as like autocomplete and like, hey, I just did this, can you do a couple more? I'm going to check on you. It's probably really helpful. The whole vibe coding, and we're not going to need developers in the future. We'll see. Can't say I'm holding my breath on that one. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Yeah, good luck. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, well, thanks, Jess. Thanks, Andy and Corbin. Thanks, John and North, for the PRB work. Appreciate you all. Thanks so much for choosing Concrete, and I'll see you in a month.